In this podcast episode, Dr. Masud Husain, a neurologist and neuroscientist at Oxford, joins Andrew Huberman to explore the neuroscience behind motivation, apathy, and how we can better understand and influence our drive to take action. Their discussion touches on the complex interplay between dopamine circuitry, effort-reward calculations, individual variation in motivation, and the broader implications for mental health and neurodegenerative diseases. They also delve into practical approaches for overcoming procrastination and enhancing motivation through understanding brain processes, as well as reflections on self-concept, ambition, and attention. Dr. Husain begins with a clinical story that illustrates the profound effects of motivation circuitry in the brain. He describes a patient named David, who, after suffering tiny strokes in the basal ganglia, a brain area evolutionarily conserved for linking motivation to action, lost almost all self-driven motivation. Though physically capable and cognitively intact, David exhibited extreme apathy, unable to initiate even simple pleasurable activities like listening to music, as the effort seemed insurmountable relative to the reward. Yet, he remained content and happy, which revealed that apathy is distinct from depression or unhappiness. This case highlights that motivation is more than mere desire. It is the brain's ability to overcome activation energy to initiate actions based on balancing reward against effort. Dopamine emerged as a central neurotransmitter in this circuitry. While the dopamine precursor L-DOPA failed to improve David's condition, a D2-D3 receptor agonist, ropinirole, successfully restored his motivation, enabling him to regain autonomy, social connection, and employment. This clinical finding strongly supports dopamine's role in driving motivated behavior and shows how damage to motivation circuits can manifest as pathological apathy independent of physical or emotional impairment. Extending beyond clinical cases, Dr. Husain shares experiments with healthy individuals, including Oxford students, to quantify how motivation works in the brain. Participants made decisions about whether an action with a certain physical effort was worth a given reward. Consistent with David's profile, apathetic individuals were willing to work for high rewards, but less inclined to invest effort for smaller rewards. Interestingly, fMRI data surprisingly revealed that these apathetic individuals showed greater activation in basal ganglia and medial frontal regions when making these cost-benefit computations. The interpretation is that apathetic brains expend more energy to overcome the activation energy hurdle, making even low-effort decisions more costly internally, which may discourage action in daily life. Dr. Husain outlines how motivational choices involve both conscious and subconscious cost-benefit analyses that weigh the expected pleasure or reward of an outcome against the mental or physical effort required. People vary widely in their activation energy thresholds, shaped by past experience, personality, and neurobiology. Those with low activation energy tend to be more efficient, initiating actions quickly rather than expending extra brain resources deliberating. This fundamental difference may underlie why some individuals seem more motivated than others. The podcast explores practical strategies to alter motivation by either reducing the perceived effort or increasing the perceived reward. For example, breaking down large tasks into smaller steps can lower activation energy and make initiation easier. Changing incentives, for instance, framing a task as teaching someone else, can increase engagement by adding meaningful reward value. Dr. Husain emphasizes the role of subjective perception, illustrating how athletes and competitors manipulate or experience altered effort perception to push past physical limits, suggesting that mental framing and psychological context significantly impact motivation. Andrew Huberman raises the concept popular in health and wellness culture that doing difficult things, like cold exposure or intense workouts, builds transferable tolerance for effort across domains. While some degree of domain specificity exists, Dr. Husain acknowledges that training oneself to overcome challenges can indeed affect motivation broadly, though the translational effects are nuanced and individualized. Discussion turns toward the psychological components that shape motivation beyond neurochemistry. Dr. Husain and Huberman acknowledge that motivation and ambition vary greatly between individuals, not only due to biology, but also cultural, social, and psychological factors. Some people strive for top-tier achievements, while others find satisfaction in moderate, consistent effort. Their reflections connect to the idea of self-concept, or how one's belief about oneself influences willingness to take on challenges and persevere despite failure or setbacks. They also discuss the domain specificity of motivation and apathy, noting that someone may be highly driven in intellectual pursuits yet socially unmotivated, or vice versa. This suggests distributed yet converging brain networks contribute diverse signals funneling into a common motivation to action pathway. Understanding these distinctions is critical to addressing motivational disorders and developing personalized interventions. Dr. Husain highlights the double-edged nature of the dopamine system. While dopamine deficiency or hypofunction leads to apathy and lack of motivation, hyperdopaminergic states seen in mania or stimulant addiction result in pathological hypermotivation characterized by impulsivity, grandiosity, and risk-taking. He points out how almost all drugs of addiction, including nicotine, alcohol, heroin, cocaine, and amphetamines, hijack the basal ganglia dopamine circuits, causing aberrant motivational states, detached from genuine reward or well-being. The conversation differentiates wanting or motivation, largely dopamine-mediated, from liking or hedonic pleasure, linked to opioid neurotransmission, explaining why addicts may intensely pursue substances despite diminished pleasure. They also reflect on the ongoing debate about whether behaviors like social media scrolling trigger true dopamine releases or represent numbing, compulsive habits that may not yield genuine positive reinforcement. Given Dr. Husain's background in attention neuroscience, the discussion shifts to how attention can be considered a limited resource allocated among external stimuli and internal thoughts. This competition explains why people sometimes feel overwhelmed by inner chatter or distracted by external events. The balance between internal focus and external engagement is essential for effective motivation and task execution, aligning with experiential concepts like flow, where focused attention reduces extraneous mental noise. They touch on attentional disorders such as ADHD, highlighting the challenge of sustaining attention on uninteresting tasks, while noting that intrinsic motivation can enhance focus on engaging activities. The basal ganglia, typically implicated in motivation, may also contribute to attentional regulation, reinforcing the interplay between motivation and attention systems. The episode addresses how motivational circuits support not only short-term goal pursuit, but also perseverance over long periods, such as completing a multi-year PhD or sustaining a relationship. Dr. Husain notes that while the basal ganglia and dopamine systems are critical for initiating motivated behavior, higher-order planning and long-term goal maintenance likely involve executive functions in the frontal cortex. Temporal discounting, the tendency to devalue rewards that are delayed, is discussed as a key factor shaping willingness to pursue long-term goals. People vary greatly in their ability to tolerate delay for larger rewards, a phenomenon not yet fully understood at the neuroscientific level. They highlight the importance of positive reinforcement, breaking long-term goals into increments, and maintaining memories of success to foster sustained motivation. Exploring the concept of self-concept further, Dr. Husain explains that self-identity emerges from a dynamic society of mind, comprising multiple brain systems for memory, perception, and behavior. The self is plastic and can change with brain injury, neurological disease, or interventions like psychedelics, which appear promising for alleviating anhedonia and depression by reshaping one's relationship to self and reward. They also emphasize that the self is tied to bodily experience, personal history, and social roles. Cultivating new roles, social connections, and a purposeful outlook is associated with resilience against cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. Research shows that many people harbor Alzheimer's pathology, plaques and tangles, without exhibiting dementia, suggesting cognitive resilience modulated by biological and lifestyle factors, including sense of purpose, social connection, and intellectual curiosity. Dr. Husain's work links early apathy as a behavioral marker of future cognitive decline, potentially opening windows for early intervention. They highlight advances in neurology, such as monoclonal antibody treatments in Alzheimer's and disease-modifying therapies in multiple sclerosis, alongside cutting-edge techniques like deep brain stimulation and blood-brain barrier modulation as promising future directions. While improvements in baseline attention via training remain inconsistent and highly task-specific, Dr. Husain recommends environmental modifications to reduce distractions. For example, disabling notifications and minimizing background noise as practical ways to support focus. He notes the energetic cost and mental friction in sustained attention to challenging tasks, emphasizing motivation as a key to overcoming boredom and distraction. The conversation reflects on how culture and upbringing shape motivation, ambition, and the values that define the games individuals and societies play. While some people achieve extraordinary success through ambitious drives, others find satisfaction in moderation and meaningful engagement in daily life. Both roles are essential to a balanced society. Purpose and meaning, especially cultivated in midlife and beyond, appear central to long-term satisfaction and cognitive health. Finally, Dr. Husain shares that personal enrichment through non-work activities like art and drawing provides relaxation and intrinsic pleasure, balancing professional demands. This reminds listeners of the importance of maintaining diverse interests that stimulate and nourish the mind beyond goal-directed work or family roles.